Okay. That's a call.
371094. Welcome to Oddball.
Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan, and that is not Charlotte Wilder, unless someone just hit you with the ugly stick, Charlotte. What's going on?
Damn.
No, that's Dakhil. He's filling in. If you're here for Charlotte, don't worry. She'll be here later along with Isaiah Thomas. Yes, University of Washington Isaiah Thomas. Former Mr. Irrelevant Isaiah Thomas. He'll be here. We interview him. It's a great conversation. You don't want to miss it. Mo, I brought you here today because we're in the middle of the FiBA World Cup. There's basketball abounds going on, live action with many NBA stars, and I just want to go through it a little bit with you in terms of things that you've seen as someone who's worked in the league. You've got a keen eye. What are the things you're hot on, Mo? So let's just start with the people that everyone expects to win this thing, the people that have been dominating as ever. Of course, I'm talking about Team Canada, right?
Yes.
Mo, at this point, through the first phase of the tournament, can I say unequivocally, Canada is a stronger side than USA?
I think you can say they're on the same level. I think the big question for them is depth. They really only go about 7 deep, and I think that's the difference between them and Team USA. Now, their top 7 is as good as Team USA's top 7, but they're 8, 9, 10, 11. Like then we're starting to scrape a little bit of like, all right, now we're hitting some issues here for Team Canada, but their top 7 is on par with Team USA's and, as good. And they've played a tougher group than Team USA. They came out and beat France right off the bat, and blew France out. And I think that's one of those things you're watching and you're saying, like, this team's here and everybody's saying it and they're correct in this. This young Canadian team is announcing that, like, we're here and we're ready to compete.
I feel like we've been waiting forever for Canada to show up, right? Like, we've seen the Canadian names in the NBA, and one would surmise, well, they should have a great national side, but they've kind of been underachieving this whole time. What do you attribute the final, like, this reckoning of Canadian basketball's finally arrived?
I think part of it is just having their guys show up. We know all the names, but a lot of them just wouldn't show up for the tournaments and whatnot. And I think that was one of those things that really kind of surprised everybody. And then Jamal Murray got hurt, and that was a guy who was regularly a member of the Canadian national team. It's funny because this team can be deeper, right? Yeah. They could add Jamal Murray to the side. Andrew Wiggins is another guy who could have potentially played for them. I mean, this is going to be a squad when they go to Paris.
Well, Brandon Clark in Memphis was, recovering from injury, but, like, he's a guy that would have been for sure part of this team.
For sure. And again, that's just how many guys there are on Canada's roster that I completely forgot that he was Canadian. Yeah. Like, there's just, like, it's a level of, like, there's just so many guys that you kind of just go like, wow. Jim
Carrey, Dan Aykroyd, John Candy. The list goes on, right? Like, all these Canadians, where they come
Well, if
from?
if it was stand-up, they would kill and be the gold medal in Olympic stand-up routines, I guess. But this is not basketball is a different story.
Well, let's talk about Team USA. And do you see a maturation from what we saw even last season? Or is this just Ant being Ant in terms of his production on the court?
I think this is more of a maturation. I think this is stuff we've seen from players who go play for Team USA and kind of take the next step. A great example I was at the 2010 World Cup for Team Australia, and that was Kevin Durant's kind of coming out party for Team USA. And then he had an unbelievable season. The thing that people don't understand too is these guys are playing actual games. This isn't pickup. This isn't, workouts on you did the whole thing on Ben Simmons Instagram videos and these are actual games. These things matter. There's stakes and all of that, and we're watching him kind of take that leap forward. I think for him this is just part of the maturation process, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to do.
One of the names that everyone's talking about because he's been consistently one of the best players on Team USA is Austin Reeves. How much of this is Austin Reeves is playing great, and how much of this is what my friend Brian Windhurst likes to call Lakers exceptionalism? Like, just the glow of being a Los Angeles Laker means that everything you do, every dump you take is the most beautiful smelling dump ever taken.
No, see, the greatest example of Laker exceptionalism was Taylor Horton Tucker. Like, that was the ultimate example of Lakers exceptionalism. He had an unbelievable preseason game,
THT.
and that was it. He was a 5-time All-Star. We're going to get ready. This guy's going to be amazing, and now he plays for Utah. But Austin Reeves is the real deal. And I think that's one of those things that I don't think people fully grasped when he was a Laker, because we just always attribute it to Lakers exceptionalism. But we're watching him on this squad. He makes a massive difference when he steps on the floor for Team USA. I mean, their very first game, against New Zealand, they were down 14-4. And then when Austin Reeves comes in the game, other guys, Tyrese Halliburton, when they stepped in, everything started to flow. He's just that guy he's the ultimate glue guy.
All right, Karl Anthony Towns playing for the Dominican Republic. He's got them winning. How surprised should we be that Karl Anthony Towns, one of the best players in the league, is carrying his country?
Yeah, we shouldn't be surprised. I feel like in FiBA World Cup, really, if you have one guy, you're at least going to probably get out of the round, depending on, some luck and things like that. But he's got a good, kind of decent squad around him. He's averaging a double-double in the 2 games that he played. Like, he can ball. As much as we hate the corniness and all of that stuff with it, the dude's all-time, not an all-time player, but he's an all-star. Like, there's a reason.
It's one of the things I hate the most about the NBA and how we do this thing. When we find a new toy, in this case it's Anthony Edwards, he's exciting, he's funny, he seems to be a lot more, tougher in those tough times in the playoffs than Towns. It immediately means that you're garbage, Towns, you suck. And I'm like, well, he doesn't suck. He might have things that we wish were different about him. It doesn't mean he sucks. And when you see him in a tournament like this, it reminds everybody, like, oh, yeah, he's actually really, really good.
All these guys in the NBA are, the 0.01% of elite basketball players. Yeah, there's some guys who aren't in the league who are amazing, but, like, these guys are unbelievably talented, and they're going to pretty much handle any game that they go into. They jump into a pickup game, a exhibition game in FIBA and whatnot, and for their country, they're going to show you why they're actually NBA players.
His name's Mo Dakhil. He's with us periodically throughout the year as a former video coordinator for the Spurs and the Clippers, and obviously, as he pointed his looking at me, Louis, credentials out, he was also on the staff for Team Australia for the World Cup and for the Olympics. Mo, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, Charlotte and I interview Isaiah Thomas. He's here with us. He's got stories. And, of course, Charlotte's going to ask him about playing in Boston because it's Charlotte. Our next guest is a 2-time All-Star, was an All-NBA selection in 2016-17, and was on the MVP ballot that year. His name is Isaiah Thomas, and he is the most successful, I guess, Mr. Irrelevant in the history of the NBA. Isaiah, you were the last pick of the draft, and you ended up having a marvelous career, one that could have been even more marvelous if it weren't for injuries. Going into the draft, what was your mind state, and what did you think was going to happen?
It was a little frustrating that day. It was obviously the longest day of my life. Like, I never watched the whole draft in my life. So it was like a blessing in disguise. Like, obviously my whole life, my dream was to get drafted and hear my name called. So when that did happen, it didn't matter if it was the first pick or the last pick. Like, one of my dreams came true. So that was amazing. But it was one of the longest days of my life. And to answer your question, no, I didn't think I was going to be the last pick. I thought I was going to get drafted a little bit earlier. But it did work out well for me. I got drafted to a great organization in the Sacramento Kings. They really gave me a chance. And as you guys know, like, when you're drafted late second round or undrafted, you really don't get a chance, especially going into training camp. It was a lockout year for me as well. So everything was kind of back against the wall. And I got an opportunity in training camp earlier in the season. They called my name, and then I took my opportunity and ran with it, and that was all she wrote.
Isaiah, if you could give one piece of advice to players who are drafted later or players who might have gone later than they thought, what would it be?
Just to trust your work. I think you go in those situations where your opportunity isn't what you thought it was, but you have to make an impact some way, somehow. And my impact was just standing out each and every day. Like I made it a point of emphasis not to fit in and just stand out, whether that was be the first guy in the gym, the last guy to leave, picking guys up full court, being that, that energy pest that all players hate. But I had to do what I had to do to get on the floor. And then once I got on the floor, it was not necessarily easy, but the opportunity allowed me to trust my work and to show my work that I put in. And then, like I said, every step of the way, any opportunity I got, I felt like I always took full advantage of, and I was always 100% prepared.
Isaiah, you were a small player. You were a short guard in a league of where point guards sometimes 6'3", 6'4", even 6'5". But I think one of the most impressive things about your game was you were a great finisher. Over length, over longer defenders, obviously 7-footer shot blockers, etc. How did you get so good at finishing?
It's just something I always had. Like I always tell people, like I've always been the smallest guy on every court. So I've always had to figure out ways to finish, or I wouldn't be allowed to be on that court. Because like as a small guy, you got to be able to get in the paint and make things happen. And I was just fearless. Like I've never had fear since I was a little boy. I've always got my shot blocked. I always fell on the ground, got back up, and just tried it again. And then when I got, to the highest level possible, it was the same thing. Obviously, early on, I had to figure out guys were longer, stronger, taller. Guys jumped higher. So I had to figure out different ways to finish in the paint. But I think the fear factor wasn't there for me. Like it didn't matter who I was going against. I always felt like I can finish over them. And then most importantly, I felt like I was just as tall as everybody. Like every time I step on the floor, I don't know why. Like I be telling my kids that I don't know, for whatever reason, I just felt like I was just as tall as everybody. Like I didn't see height when I got on the floor. So it didn't really make a difference when I was on the floor in terms of trying to finish over 7-foot guys. Like I felt like I was just as tall as them. Or, when I finished, my athleticism allowed me to be just as big as them. So it's a fine line between learning how to finish in between the bigs. But like I said, it comes back to I've always been the smallest guy on the floor. So I've always had to figure out ways to manipulate the defense and, use that to my advantage.
Isaiah, you've played for several teams, Kings, Suns, Celtics, Cavs, Hornets. What was the most difficult environment, and what was the environment where you just sort of felt your best?
Obviously, I felt my best. Well, there was 2 stints. My third year in Sacramento. So I played 3 years in Sacramento. My third year, I got my biggest opportunity that I've gotten up until that point. I was able to average 20 points a game, 6 assists. We didn't win a lot, but I showed promise, especially with given the opportunity. But obviously, my best time playing was in Boston. Like I got the biggest opportunity. I took advantage of it. I had a great support system in my teammates. My coaching staff allowed me to be who I always dreamed of being, always knowing that I can be the main guy on a winning team. The most difficult time was probably my Cleveland stint because I was injured. I never really played with Hall of Fame guys, superstar guys like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Love. Who else was it? J.R. Smith, D. Rose. Like the list goes on that team. And it was a lot going on. I was fighting the injury. Like I was trying to fight getting back to myself, knowing that I really wasn't myself. I was playing on one leg in front of the world to watch. And, at being a small guy, at being 5'9", you got to be special every time you touch the floor. And at that point in time, I wasn't who I was. I wasn't special. I wasn't able to showcase me being who I was, obviously, like the previous year where I averaged 30 points a game. So that was a tough time in my career because I was never hurt before. And I was never, sidelined to where my mind thought I can play at that level, but my body wasn't allowing me to. So it was a tough situation for me. And at the same time, like I said, I was coming off averaging 30 a game. So the world expected me to average 30 a game when my opportunity wasn't the same to do that. So in that situation, if I could do it over again, I would have probably went about it differently. At that point in time, I was fighting the battle of proving to people I was healthy. I was fighting the battle of proving that I was still the same player. when the opportunity wasn't there and my body didn't allow me to be the same player. So to answer your question, Sacramento and Boston was my favorite time playing. Cleveland was the toughest situation, but it was so dope to be around arguably the best player ever, to see how he works each and every day. It was dope to build relationships. My airplane partner that sat right next to me was D Rose, so it was dope to build that friendship with him. D Wade was a great teammate to me and a friend of mine to this day, along with J.R. Smith. And then Kevin Love, I played with since 5th and 6th grade. I used to stay at his house every weekend when I used to play for the Portland AAU team. So it was like, it was a dope environment. It just, the situation wasn't right for me at that point in time. So those are my answers to those questions.
Let me ask you something, and I know this is a little sensitive, but like, do you wish you had gotten the hip surgery during the season as opposed to playing through it in that last season in Boston?
So in Boston, I do wish I didn't play through it in the season. I mean, in the playoffs, but I was going through a real life situation when my sister passed away as well. So basketball was kind of like the only thing that allowed me to feel somewhat type of, normal in my life. Like it took away what I was going through for those 2.5 hours. So, yes, if I could do it again, I would sit out. I wouldn't have surgery because if I sat out, I wouldn't need it to have surgery. That's the crazy thing about it.
Wow.
So, and then going to that off season, the surgery I got in 2020 that changed my career and changed my life, my everyday life, to where it fixed the ultimate problem. It was brought to me in 2017, but I wasn't trying to be the first professional athlete to get it. So like, I didn't want to be the trial error. I didn't want to be that. Like, so, but if I can do it again, like, I wish I got that surgery. I wish somebody got it before me so I didn't have that decision, but I wish I got that surgery, sat out that whole season, and then I would have been 100% ready going into free agency next season, possibly sign a 1-year deal somewhere, showcase my ability and that I'm 100% healthy, and go from there. Like if I could do it over again, I would go that route. But, you live and you learn. I'm obviously still super blessed. I'm still trying to play the game that I love. I'm 100% healthy. I'm a free agent right now. I'm 34 years old. I'm still trying to make an impact on the organization. It's not over for me until teams tell me that the opportunity is not there no more, and they haven't told me that. So I'm gonna keep pushing. I'm gonna keep staying on my slow grind and keep waiting for that opportunity, as always.
Do you have a team, like what's the team you would go to if you could put yourself anywhere right now?
I mean, obviously, I would love to go to a winning situation. I think that at this point in my career, it would be best for me. But I can do both things. Like, I can be on a rebuilding team that's really young, and I can mentor and I can be a vet presence. I think I was telling kids the other day, well, not kids, but younger guys. I was over at UCLA playing at the Rico Hines runs. And I was just telling guys, don't take this for granted. Like, enjoy the journey. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs in the journey, but if you enjoy the process of the journey, then that's half the battle. Everything else is going to work out for you. So I think my situation in the league has been one that a lot of people hasn't been in, whether I've been a franchise player, I've been a guy that's getting DNPs, I've been a 60th pick to where my opportunity isn't there and I'm not getting no minutes and I'm being a cheerleader on the bench. I just feel like I can do all things and I can be a vet presence to a young team. Just because of my situations in the league, a lot of people can't say they've been in every situation. So that I think that will allow me to help a younger guy that's coming up and trying to find his way.
Isaiah, one of the things that fascinates me is the relationship that players have as rookies with a vet. Everyone's got their vet. And even after you guys split ways, it's usually someone you continue to be in contact with and stay connected to forever. For you, who was your vet as a rookie? And then later in your career, who were some of your rookies that you were a vet for?
So my vet was Francisco Garcia and John
Cisco.
Salmons for Sacramento Kings. So
That's
those are
what's
two
up.
guys that they looked out for me. They paved the way for me. They showed me how to be a professional. Obviously, I'm from the Tacoma area out in Seattle, Washington. Jason Terry and Jamal Crawford were big on me. Like they were somebody that I looked to when I grew up, when I was younger, and they ultimately paved the way on learning how to be a professional, learning how to work like a professional, and come in every day and be that professional teammate that I'm supposed to be each and every day, whether I'm playing or not. So those were four guys that were very beneficial to my career. I would say for me, being a vet, goes back to Boston. Like when I got to Boston, Marcus Smart was a rookie, so that was one of my rooks. I know. Terry Rozier was a rookie of mine, and also Jaylen Brown. Like, so those are guys that I still talk to this day. Last season the season before I was able to be on the Charlotte Hornets. So it was dope to see Terry Rozier in a different role than being a rookie when I was in Boston. So to see his growth and his maturity to go to that level is amazing. So I got so many young guys in the league that I talk to and take care of. Then when I was in Denver, Michael Porter Jr. and Jared Vanderbilt was my rookies. So it was like, all the young guys seemed to gravitate towards me and my story. And it's super dope to be able to, give back to those guys and give the game that the Francisco Garcias, the John Salmons, the Jason Terrys, and Jamal Crawfords gave me. Because I remember them telling me, the game that we give you and the things that we tell you, at some point you're going to have to give to somebody else. And I was able to do that. And I'm still able to do that to guys around the league, especially like when I able to go to situations like UCLA and play with all those NBA guys and those younger guys coming up. They always ask me questions about different things, and it's super dope to be able to, give that information to them, because if you hold on to the information, that does nothing for you and it does nothing for the next generation. So I'm super grateful to be able to give back and show those younger guys what it takes to be successful in the league.
Isaiah, Amin blew my cover before we even started the interview, and obviously my background does too. I'm a huge Celtics fan. I was really devastated when you were traded, and you saw my reaction when you said Marcus Smart's name. You guys are the heart of the team in so many ways. And what does it feel like when you are taken out of that situation? And have you talked to Marcus about it?
It's crazy because I haven't talked to Marcus. I kind of tried to let him get his little space because I know that situation is tough. And he was there way longer than I was, but it felt like it was the same amount of time. So I know what he's going through. And I read some things where he was caught off guard as well. So I think that's the only time where you feel like you're owed something. You feel like you're owed, like, at least a conversation of knowing that it's a possibility to get traded. Obviously, it's a business. And you're not guaranteed that, like, it's not supposed to happen, but you feel like when you go to war with a group of people, they owe you at least that. And to read some things about Marcus Smart being caught off guard, it's an unfortunate situation, but it does happen. And I think for me, when I was going through that, it was a little more difficult for me because I was injured at the time, so I couldn't play right away. I was going through a real life situation, and I put my career on the line for guys that I thought had my back. Not saying the whole organization didn't have my back. Like, I have tremendous amount of love for everybody in that organization. And I know those decisions are based on business decisions. So it's like 7 years later, it's no hard feelings. Like, anything I say is no hard feelings to the city or to the organization, because I still have lifetime relationships with those guys. But it does hurt. Like, at the end of the day, guys are human. We have human feelings. And when you put your all into a situation, it does hurt at the end of the day. So, but I know Marcus Smart is going to have a hell of a career moving forward. I know he's going to have that same impact that he had on the Boston Celtics community and the organization. He's going to have that with the Memphis Grizzlies. And the Grizzlies are going to have a good one because Marcus Smart is one of a kind.
All right, that was just the first part of our conversation with Isaiah Thomas. You don't want to miss the second part. It airs tomorrow right here on Oddball.